Hey, it's Clint and Stacy. Actually, it's just Clint again. Stacy is at work, and today is part two of installing our solar system. I just thought that I would do sort of a quick separate video aside from this one, showing you our inverter and explaining a couple of things about why we chose it. So this is a Sungold Power 24-volt inverter charger. And the reason well, there was a few reasons why I chose this one, but the one sort of main reason is that this is one of the only inverters that I was able to find that has a 300% surge rating as compared to the normal 200%. So the AC output of this particular inverter is 3,000 watts, but it can take temporary spikes of up to 9,000. And because we wanted to be able to run our air conditioning off of this inverter, and I don't really have a concept of just how much of a surge capacity that's going to require. I wanted to make sure that we had more than enough, and this should definitely accomplish that. I have done some little tests on it with when we had it in our basement hooked up to our batteries, and I was able to successfully get it up to about a 5,000 watt surge, and it handled that just fine. So as far as the rest of the features of this inverter is concerned, I mean, it seems like it's a pretty impressive setup actually for what you pay. They're fairly economical to buy. It does have two operation settings, one for full on and one for power saver. The power saver feature sends a little pulse out every 3 seconds, detecting to see if there's a load there, and if there is, then it fires the inverter up. But if there isn't, then it leaves it in standby mode where it doesn't use hardly any idle consumption at all. Over here you've got a chart with numbers indicating different battery chemistries. And these numbers here, depending on what you have for a battery bank, will set the parameters for the charger when you use the inverter to charge your battery bank. And those adjustments are just made on this little dial here. So we're using lithium iron phosphate battery, so I've already got that setting set to number 7. And then we've got a bunch of lights here. So the lights just indicate different stages of what the inverter is up to at the time. You've got the power save function, the overload trip, over temperature trip, charger on float mode, charger on fast charge, inverter power, and shore power. Depending on what the inverter is up to, different lights will turn on accordingly. And then this little switch here, which I think is actually quite neat, is a dial that you can use to adjust how many amps you want this to charge your batteries at. And basically this is just a little diagram explaining that all the way to the left is as high as it'll go, and all the way to the right is as low as it'll go. So the lowest setting, based on what we were using it for in our experiments in the basement, is about 5 amps. And I never turned it up past 20 because I don't know, I just didn't. So I don't know how high it'll go. I personally think that 20 amps, though, in the case of an emergency, if the solar can't handle charging these for a temporary period of time, ought to be enough of a supplement to get us back on track. But it's also nice to know that the capability to turn it up is there. So there's fans on both ends. There's a cooling fan on the DC side, and then also another one on the AC side. This is the side that your cables connecting to your battery bank obviously would hook up. And then we've got a spot here for a battery temperature sensor, and then also an auto generator start. And then on the other side we've got a port for an LCD remote, which actually the inverter comes with, and then also a series of 5 dip switches that you can use to adjust different behaviors about how you want the inverter to work. So in no particular order, I don't have what the different dip switches 1 through 5 are for, but I do remember that the different things that you can change is the range of AC that's allowed to come into this from your generator or from your pole. You can I do know that the bottom one, number 5, adjusts the priority from grid power to solar power. So we have ours set in the position so that it'll pull from the batteries first, and the pole only if the batteries aren't keeping up. I think it's the top one. You can adjust the low voltage setting, at which point the charger will kick in if the batteries get below a certain amount. It's on this particular one, being a 24 volt, it's set at 21 volts, which I think is pretty crazy low, but we'll see how that goes. It's the only setting that there is. It's actually the highest of the two that are available. The other one is 20 volts. And then there is, one of them is your energy saver. So the one setting controls the 3-second pulses looking for loads, and then the other one in the manual just says night charging mode, and I can't really find anything in the manual that explains what that means. And I did a Google search on it a little bit earlier and couldn't really find anything on there that explains what that is. But at any rate, the 3-second energy saver feature is probably the one that we wanted anyway. The inverter isn't energized obviously at the moment, but this is a display that kind of scrolls through 3 or 4 sort of key stats about what is going on with the inverter at the time while it's running. And then on the front here, we've got a couple of breakers at the top for the charger input and also the inverter output. We have a GFI just to plug straight in, and then you've got your hardwire connections on the bottom for power going out, and then also power coming in from your generator or your grid, or maybe even both. I'm not sure. You'd have to have a transfer switch, I guess, if you were going to try and do both. But for us, we're going to use, I'm just going to drop a generator port underneath the trailer, and that way you can only have one or the other plugged in. For us, it'll likely be our house, but we can run the generator through this too if it turns out that we need that. So that's it in a nutshell. Once I actually get it into the trailer today, we'll play around with it and see how it performs. I've got pretty high hopes for what this is going to accomplish for us, but we'll actually put it to the real world test once we get everything all in there.